So our continuation in the study, the book of Ecclesiastes, and that is Ecclesiastes, that is right after the Psalms and the Proverbs, sort of in the middle of your Old Testament. And we believe, and I believe, it's an arguable point, but I do believe that Solomon did write this. If it wasn't him, it doesn't make a lot of difference. It was someone who's kind of pretending to be him, but I do tend to believe that this was Solomon. And this very famous Jewish text written in Hebrew in the Old Testament is a search for the meaning in life. You know, that's where our culture is right now. They are scampering, and maybe it's you too, trying to find meaning in this life. When we move from stage to stage, when we move from youth to young adulthood, when we move from young adulthood to middle age, when we move from middle age to older, and then when we move from there to the next step, wherever that is, after we are older, all of those times have a search for meaning. And, you know, we can get to the place that we search so much that it is meaningless to us, that life is. And that's kind of where Solomon was. And there is a phrase in this that we want to cover that Solomon uses constantly: under the sun, which means here means without a God that matters or makes a difference. World is. How much of America supposedly is Christian? It's something like 75, 80 something percent. It's always way high. And that baffles me, because if that were the case, it looks like our society and our culture would be vastly different than what it is, but it's not. When I was in high school, in 1985, for some of you, that's like, oh, wow, that's not very long ago. For others, that's like, horse and buggy kind of age. But I am a Gen Xer. But when I was in high school in 1985, one of my favorite movies, and it was my favorite really because it was one of the first movies that I went to with friends that my parents weren't there. You know, they kind of dropped us all at the movie theater, and that was kind of what we did. We didn't go to the mall. We went there. But it was a movie from the 80s called Better Off Dead. And that movie, Better Off Dead, was just a fun movie in some ways. Some things in it were not great as I look back, and some things were okay. But here's the premise. It starred John Cusack as a high school student. His name was Lane Meyer. He became suicidal after his girlfriend, Beth, broke up with him shortly right before Christmas. So as he attempts either to do himself in or to win back his ex-girlfriend. So he's into skiing and all this kind of stuff, but he gradually gets to know this new girl. She's a French foreign exchange student, and her name was Monique. And she was staying with this family, and the family was there, and the son was kind of creepy, and the mom wanted the son and this foreign exchange student to get together. I think that's the whole reason that she invited the foreign exchange student, because he wasn't real. He was just not a great guy. And so she spoke English, but she pretended that she didn't speak English. She only spoke French, so she wouldn't have to deal with him. But she kind of likes the guy across the street, which is our guy. Well, when his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend, Roy, who was a bully, he was an oppressor, he insulted this French foreign exchange student. Well, he had to take up the cause. So he challenges this guy to a ski race, a big ski race, and whoever won was going to be the captain of the ski team. Well, this big bully thought there's no way this little puny kid's going to win. You know the situation. It's a Hollywood movie, most definitely. So this Monique girl is a jack of all trades. So she helps him. She helps him restore his old Camaro, because he was driving down a broken down station wagon and it wasn't very cool. So she kind of brings up his cool quotient there. She helps him, and he ultimately wins, even though he loses this ski. So his ex-girlfriend then, she wanted to be with the winner. So she rushes over and she wants to embrace him. And he's like, no, get away from me. And so he rejects her, and he drives off with the French foreign exchange student in his newly restored Camaro. Now, isn't that a great Hollywood ending? So he wasn't better off dead. He was actually better off living, because you never know what's going to happen, because life is fickle. Now, you may say, I hope your taste in movies has evolved. Yes, it has, most definitely. But I was a teenager, and it was a fun teenager movie. But it did teach us something. Life is fickle. It has its ups and downs. Sometimes you get the girl. Sometimes you lose a ski. Sometimes the bully wins. And there's a whole lot of living in between. And that's where most people are these days. So when we finished Ecclesiastes chapter 3, Solomon now is turning, and he did give us a little bit of hope there, if you remember. He's now going to turn his cry to his cry of hopelessness again when he sees another issue, and that's the issue of injustice. And he's going to say, we're better off dead. So in chapter 4, verse 1, and we got to book it today because we got a good bit to read here. And so I hope you have your Bible. We will have it on the screen if not, but I hope you bring it, or your computer or your iPad or whatever. Solomon is going to consider all the oppression in the world, which is really a misnomer because there's no way you can know all the oppression, right? You only know what you see. You don't see all the other oppression that other people have to go through, but all the oppression that's done under the sun. So as he continues this quest to search for meaning in a meaningless life, what's his conclusion? Well, the first part is a lament for oppression and for toil. That's going to be our first point today. He's going to lament oppression and lament toil. Verse 1, then I returned and considered all the oppression that is done under the sun, and look, the tears of the oppressed, but they have no comforter. On the side of the oppressors there is power, but they have no comforter. Therefore I praise the dead who were already dead than the living who are still alive. Yet better than both, none. So Solomon sees this in Jeremiah and others in the biblical record, most we do in our modern age. When was the last time that you and it kind of made something rise up in you and you thought, that's not right? Why do people do that? It causes us, and that I believe is because we're made in the image of God, it causes us to rise up. There are entire movements of human angst that have been begun because of poverty, because of sickness, because of human rights, because of racial issues, because of financial disparity. Lots of different things that come up. Some of them right, some of them not right. But there's always this thing within the human spirit that wants to fight against that, especially when it comes to poverty and wealth. Proverbs 22:16 says, he who oppresses the poor to increase his riches, and he who gives to the rich will surely come to poverty. And that's another wise principle that we live under. But I want to remind you that this is under the sun. What does under the sun mean? Under the sun means that the oppressed are going to cry their tears in the world's scheme of things, but no one can really comfort them, right? Because power belongs to the oppressors who do as they please. It seems that the bullies always get it, right? If you are in middle school and you are fighting a bully and there's a bully there, it seems like the bully always gets it. He's the coolest guy, or she's the coolest mean girl that's there. And for some reason, everybody always runs to them to look to see what they think when they're not good. Well, there's no comfort for that. Meyer says, oh, the tears for the oppressed, the tiny children, the terror-stricken fugitives from the Turk, the European trader, and the drunken tyrant of the home. Through all the centuries, tears have flowed enough to float a navy. Boy, that's the truth, isn't it? It might have been in your own life. You might have cried many tears. Maybe it was junior high. Maybe it was last week, because of the oppressors that are there in your life. But I want you to note in this scripture that it's also their oppressors have no comforter. Did you see that? That's something I didn't catch on the first reading. The oppressed have no comfort, but also the oppressors have no comfort, because situations change very rapidly, don't we? We see that especially in our age today. What we want one day and we think is the most important thing may be the curse of our life the very next day. Wasn't it Garth Brooks who said, I thank God for unanswered prayers? Yeah, that guy that I want to marry him. You turn around and it didn't happen and you were just, but then later on you think, what a loser. I escaped that one, right? So an unanswered prayer, what happens one day that we want maybe is a curse in the next day. Power is fleeting because people are fickle. So under the sun, both the oppressed and the oppressor are left uncomforted, and there's no comfort for anyone. He's lamenting oppression and toil. Guzik says, the dead who are already dead. Did you see that phrase? I praised the dead who were already dead. That's an odd way to say that. He says the dead who are already dead is an interesting phrase. It implies that there are the dead who are not yet dead. Maybe that's the walking dead. They walk this earth and they have biological life, but their spirit and their soul seem dead. So Solomon concludes that man is just better off dead. Have you ever said that before? It would be better if I just died. Nobody'd miss me. Everybody'd be better off if I wasn't alive. He's looked at the powerful, he's looked at the powerless, and he looked at them through the lens of the world. That's why he says under the sun. It would have been better, in fact, not to have been born at all. That's a depressive mindset in many people who are depressed, whether that is situational or chemical. That's where they get to. They think it'd be better if I hadn't been born at all. As someone who's had suicide in my family, let me just tell you right now, you're only taking your pain and you're transferring it to every single person that you love. Amen? That's what really happens. The pain doesn't end. So it's better to look at life not under the sun, but in the Son of God, Jesus Christ. Heinrich Heine, who is a German poet, said this, and how fatalistic it is. Sleep is good, death is better, but of course, the best thing would to have never been born at all. How tragic is that? But yet there's a real difference between the two, the oppressor and the oppressed. There is a coming judgment. Christ reminds us that those who powerfully use their ability to oppress others will one day endure punishment in the afterlife, not those oppressors who follow after him. Matthew 18, verses 6 and 7 reminds us of that. I'm not going to take time to read that, but that's an important thing that we understand, that God is on the side of the oppressed. But the oppressors don't have it. Theirs is just going to come later. In verse 4, let's pick up some speed here. Again, I saw that for all toil and every skillful work, a man is envied by his neighbor. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. The fool folds his hand and consumes son nor brother. Yet there is no is his eye satisfied with riches, but he never deprive myself of good. This is also vanity and a grave misfortune. He's talking a little bit not only about oppression, but about toil and how we work. Remember, I told you a few weeks ago, I said I realized when I got a new life insurance policy that I wasn't going to enjoy a penny of it. A lick of it. Matter of fact, it was going to cost me, but it was for everyone else. So his question, for whom do I toil and deprive myself of good? This is a workaholic here who doesn't have anyone in his life because he's so busy working and getting ahead. Life brings a competition sometimes, doesn't it? We work and we work, many times for the wrong reasons. We do the right thing, which is hard work, but we do that for the wrong reasons because we're trying hard to prove ourselves as valuable to someone or for some reason. Especially if we feel that we have no value, we'll work and we'll work and we'll work because we'll want to get that value from somewhere else. Especially, I think men do this more than women. Women actually do it also, but we work to prove ourselves valuable, more valuable than those around us. I got to be the best. I got to be the best. And our American mindset really hits that. We want to be envied because of our hard work and our success. That's the wrong reason, isn't it? We should work and do whatever our hand finds for us to do. But when our work becomes an idol, that's a problem. So he's contrasting that in the next verses there to the fool who won't work. And sometimes that worker looks at the fool and says, look at him. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to worry about all this. The fool who won't work, it says, is literally destroying himself. He's eating his own flesh. That means he's not helping anybody or anything. He's not only not getting anything, but he's not getting anything for anyone else. He says it's better to have a quiet life with sparseness than to have both hands full of possessions with endless striving and with endless jealousy that comes to you that you have to prove that you're better. So the dog race never ends. And he says, who am I working for anyway? I'm by myself. There's never enough. It's never complete. Your work will always be unfinished when you go home. And who's going to share it with him? So I thought about this. I thought about all those TV shows. And, it's really popular these days for kind of 20 and 30 somethings. They're usually single. and they're working hard. And if you got like a hospital show, or you got like a law show, and they give all for their career. But who shares the fruit of the labors for one who is empty? They have no relationships. They have no family. They only go to work, and they go to work early, and they come home late if they don't sleep at the office, or wherever they are. And they live with nothing. They don't have fun. They don't have a life, but achieving their supposed success. And we can watch it on TV and see how empty it is, but yet at the same time, we find ourselves in the same place. Sometimes alone, lonely, exhausted, and unhappy. But we're successful. That's where Solomon found himself. He lamented oppression and toil. Our second point today is I titled it this: a better be attitude. The attitude that we should have would be to be. Are we better off dead, or are we better to be? And he gives us some things here in the coming verses that are better for us. But I like what Kidner said. He said, having looked at the poverty of the loner, whatever his outward success, we now reflect on something better, and better is going to be our key word. Verse 9. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, powered by another, two can with is not quickly broken. Solomon sees some value somewhere, which I think is kind of great, because in and out for quite a while. So he's seeing value here. He says two are better than one. There's a good reward for their toil, which means if they're working together, many hands make light work. He says if you fall, there's going to be someone there to catch you and to help you get up. If you're cold, there's going to be someone there to help warm you up. If you're fighting the fight against the man, then someone else can help you win and strategize to win. It really, truly is care and concern from other people that help to make our journey worthwhile. We can go through anything, as the song says, as long as we do it together. Whatever you do, wherever you go. Yep, that's what the song says, and that's true. And that reminded me of church. Last night we had a Sunday school class fellowship at the Mosley's house, and it was so much fun. But one of the things that we did that was so encouraging, other than eating soup and cornbread and all kinds of fun stuff, we shared our salvation testimonies. And that's something we don't always get to do. So several people in that group shared what it was like and what God did in their life when they trusted Him. And it was so neat to be able to not feel alone, because others have the same journey that we are on. We say these two words a lot here. They're kind of our watchwords: encouragement and what? Influence. Those are two things that church should be about. It's a great purpose of the local church. It's God's plan for His people. I'm always looked at funny when I say the purpose for God's church gathered is not evangelism or so much discipleship and worship. You're like, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? It is, but it's under the context of encouragement and influence that we bring all of those. Why? Because you don't feel alone in doing them. It's not, or it is for individuals to be a part of a great cloud of witnesses who march side by side. Like Brother Huell said, onward Christian soldiers marching as to war. And that's a militaristic view of the kingdom, but it really is true. We are together as we proceed. Matter of fact, Matthew 18:20, it says, where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Or as Hebrews 10:24 says, it tells us, and we memorize this, to consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. Those are the things that we want you to experience as you're a part of the fellowship. If you're not a part of the fellowship, it's going to be hard for you to experience that. But to stir one another up, that means challenge when it's necessary. That means encouragement and coming around the side when it's necessary. Giving opportunities to take your spiritual gifts and giving you, planting you in fertile soil so that you will be able to get roots that go down deep, so that you'll be able to grow strong and bear the fruit that Christ desires for you. It talks about a cord of three there. And boy, we use that a lot in marriages, don't we? I've used that in many marriages. We even some folks will take a rope, and they'll take that rope and they will braid it. And I'm always glad when they do, because I don't know how to braid. I never knew how to braid hair. And Rachel would look at me and she'd go, "Daddy, that don't do that." Okay, yeah, I can't braid at all. But some people can braid really well, and they take those two strands with the one strand, and that's supposed to symbolize a husband and a wife around Christ in the marriage. And that's an applicable thing. But what about those who don't marry, who are single, or maybe because life has treated them such, they're divorced? What about them? Are they stuck being cold and alone uh, with this cord of three? Some commentators say that this cord of three is the family, and that there are children. Nothing makes folks stick together more than kids. Well, why did you stay together? Well, we stayed together for the kids. So nothing makes that stick together like that. But I love the idea here of God's people together as church, so that when we come together, that we are stronger and we are better off together. Loneliness was the first thing that God pronounced as not good in his world. Out of all of creation, he didn't say that about the crocodiles. Yeah, or even the piranha fish. He didn't say that. Those were maybe amusing to him, but he said loneliness. It's not good for man to be alone. Verse 13 says this. Let's continue with our scripture. Better a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who will be admonished no more. For he comes out of prison to be king, although he was born poor in his kingdom. And of all the people over not rejoice in him, surely this is also vanity and grasping for one who's young and inexperienced, but has wisdom. Possible. Matter of fact, Paul told Timothy, "Don't let anybody look down upon your youth." Because with Christ, with the Lord, it's a whole lot better than even great wisdom without the Lord. Solomon really proves that, and Timothy also proved that. But Solomon says he would rather have the young whippersnapper speaking into his life than the old king with lots of experience that was admonished no more. Kidner says he has reached a pinnacle of human glory, this king, only to be stranded there. It is yet another of our human anti-climaxes and ultimately empty achievements. So the king reaches everything, and he's like, "Well, this is all there is. I can't go any higher, whatever." That's where the king is. And so it says here that he's not admonished anymore. Those who come after, they don't rejoice in him. They just put him to the annals of history, and that's where he is. It's grasping for the wind. It's vanity. So much for his life. Better to be young, poor, and wise than old, foolish, with wealth and position. And he notes here that the old guy was born poor, but he escaped prison and he made good. Sort of like our politicians today, right? They they were born. Oh, they were all born poor. Oh, they were the poorest. They were the poorest of poor, and they raised up. But the world is fickle. What we applaud at one moment, we turn and we get on them at another. The approval rate of one who hasn't really gotten into office and done a lot of bad stuff is usually pretty high. But once he starts or she starts making decisions, whoop, it plummets. It's sort of like second term presidents. Have you ever noticed the second term usually isn't that good? You're like, oh man. Yeah, they don't have to keep promises. They just do whatever, and they're tired of the job, and they get gray-headed. That's what happens. Second-term presidents. Fame is short-lived, right? Vanity of vanities. It's like Harry S. Truman, our president at the end of World War II, and coming out of that, said, "The White House is the finest prison in the world." All those guys who get there, they leave, and you kind of want to go, ask them, was that worth it? I don't know that it would be. How the world attacks you, how all that, it's very difficult to lead. That brings us to point 3 and chapter 5, which is this: a warning for one's walk. So he's given us some better beatitudes. He's lamented oppression and toil, but now he warns us in our walk. He sees things in life that can truly ruin a person. This is beneficial for us, even in his under the sun mentality. So he kind of asked a question: what can take away the individual's blessing And I think that that's the reason for this admonition of verse 1. And he says this: walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw to hear rather than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know what they do, for they do not know that they do evil. One single word. It's the word when. When you go, he will go to the house of the Lord. And I think that that is a meeting and gathering together really is important. It's not merely attendance, but involvement in. It will change your life. Last night we heard testimony after testimony, and 95% of them were centered around what God did in church with God's people. It can happen outside of it, but it is rare, folks. That's why God gives us his people. When we go, he assumes we're going to go to the house of the Lord. So I'd say, do you? Do you prioritize that? Do you value that? So that is where you and your family are. And then he says that we should be respectful as we go, or prudently. We're to walk prudently when we go. That means showing care for or thought for the future. So we go with a view of not just going because I'm supposed to, well, I got to go to church. I get my Jesus star on my God chart this week and I'm good to go. And you leave and it makes no difference. No, that's not it at all. We should show care and thought for our future, for not only for our life and how we handle it, but also for eternity as we go. Not only to get a blessing, but how can I be a blessing to others in encouraging others in my role with my gifts, as we studied even this past summer. So what do? We go prudently by drawing near to God. I pray that every time of worship, whether you know a song or you don't know a song, whether you're comfortable praying or not comfortable praying, but I pray that it will draw you near unto the Lord, that he may hear our hearts so that we may obey him. That's really what it comes down to. Many times we cry out, we say, oh God, I want to know more. Oh Lord, teach me more. And sometimes I think God is kind of going, well, why don't you act upon what you already know? We need not to know more. We need to obey what we do know, so God will give us more. He says we need to do that, unlike those who just come with an outward expression of religion that's done without obedience. We just come and we go through the motions, and it really means nothing, and we'll fade away. Verse 2, do not be rash with your mouth. Uh-oh. Now he's starting to open up Pandora's box here. And let not your heart utter anything hastily before God, for God is in heaven and you on earth. Words be few. There's a song, that song, because it reminds us of 3. For a dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. That could be a great yearbook quote. If you're a senior, that's a great yearbook quote right there. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed. Better not to vow than to vow and not pay. Verse 6, do not let your mouth cause your flesh say before the messenger of God that it was an error. Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? Now remember, this is all under the sun. For in the multitude of dreams and many words, there's also vanity. And then he gives 3 great words: but fear God. So what can take away an individual's blessing? Well, your mouth. That's what my mama used to always tell me. Your mouth is going to get you in more trouble. Have you ever said that to your child, or has it had it said to you? If it wasn't for your mouth, yeah. Or I remember a phrase, and if my mom is watching this, she knows this phrase. She would say, "Your long lashing tongue." Have you ever said that? Is my mom the only one? That long lashing tongue of yours is going to get you in trouble. And it usually did. And I wasn't necessarily disobedient, but boy, I sure was sassy when it came to saying things and letting it get in trouble. So someone once wisely told me, and I'll use the Latin, "Shuticus upicus." That's the best thing to do. So if you translate the Latin, that means close your mouth, stop talking. Okay. There's another line in another movie that says, "This is what you're doing. This is what I want you to do." Okay. So I'll do that sometimes with my students. I'll just do this, and they know exactly what that is. It tells us to be quiet. He said, God is in heaven. He knows all things. You do not. Trust him and stop talking so much. Sometimes we talk ourselves into a corner and we just say words, and words are supposed to mean something, but they don't sometimes. It's like Churchill said. He said, "We are masters of the unsaid words, but slaves of those we let slip out." And boy, isn't that truth, isn't it? If you don't believe me, when your wife comes out and says, "Honey, do I look fat in this?" You look and you always ask a question, men. What do you think? Don't ever say yes. Don't ever say no, because your words, you will be a slave of your words. Just say, "I think you're beautiful," no matter what. And you can mean that with your heart, most definitely. When you vow or you promise to God and you fail to deliver, it's a serious matter. Keeping your word true is important to God, and it's important to us. Who likes to be lied to? Nobody. Nobody likes that. And you shouldn't go and say, "Well, that was my bad." Oh, I hate that. I do not like that when people, "My bad, my bad." No, no, just say, "Yeah, I was wrong." That's a whole lot more meaningful than "my bad." Okay, kids, don't say "my bad" to your parents. They don't like it. Say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." That's always much more contrite. And that word error right there, the Hebrew word that is used there, shagaga, refers to an unintentional or an inadvertent sin. And if you've been reading through Leviticus with us, we've read about that in chapter 4. The law had specific instruction for atoning for those types of sins. But the sinner's claim that it was an error seems disingenuous. It's dishonest. It's sort of like, "Well, yeah, my bad." Yeah, you're not really sorry. Yeah, and but you know you need to say something to make everybody feel a little bit better, and that's not it. Jews often vow. They say they vow by Jerusalem. Have you ever heard that? Or they'll say, "On my mother's grave." It's even they have it in movies. It's almost a caricature in some ways, because they would do that, and it's foolish, isn't it? Let your word be your word. Let it be true. That's a warning for one's walk. Our last point today, as we finish these scriptures up and close, point 4, he says there's even more emptiness. Oh, just when we thought that he was about as empty and hopeless as he could get, he has more that's coming out. Verses 8 through 20 are what covers this. And it seems like a new problem coming. He says, "Don't marvel at that matter, for high official watches over high are over them. Moreover, the profit of the land is for served from the field." Solomon is referring to those who work and who gain things, and then they lose everything in a moment of foolish speaking. It all goes away, which you're one step away from that kind of mistake if you speak and you speak dishonestly. So the result of corruption, dishonesty. When you see that injustice, don't be surprised. We marvel at it. We think, "Oh, have you seen the news? I can't believe it." Folks, believe it. It's the world in which we live. Fallen, broken people in a fallen, broken world. It's part of life under the sun. So he says that gain for a land comes in every way from the king who is committed to his fields. That means that the king's going to eat from those fields the same as everybody else is. So when we see all of that, it's going to come back upon the leaders and the oppressors, the same as the oppressed. And what is the best thing to do for that? What he just said in that last chapter: fear the Lord. Fear God as a guard against that presumption. Verse 10, "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver." Can I get an amen on that? "Nor he who loves abundance with increase. This is also vanity." When goods increase, the more you have, the more you got to have. With their eyes, and it's whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of fed him to sleep. You got to take care of everything. "There's a severe evil which I have seen under the sun, riches kept for their owner to his hurt. But those riches perish through misfortune. When he begets a son, there is nothing in his hand." So verse 9 and 10 there, or verse 10, money will never satisfy you. All right? The more you get, the more you need. Matter of fact, the Beatles said it really well. Money can't buy you love. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't at all. First Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 gives us the antidote for that. And it's this: godliness with contentment is great gain. Why is it great gain? Because if you're constantly running the rat race, that dog race of more, 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 I got to have more, I got to have more, I got to provide for my family more, I want this opportunity, I want to look better. If you're constantly doing that, your heart is not content and you will not be in a happy place. Do you want joy? Do you want all those things in your life? Then have godliness and be content with what the Lord gives to you, whether it's big or not. When godliness happens in our lives, it really is enough. People tell you, oh, no, it's not. It is. It's enough. Think about those who have a contentment where they are. They have peace, they have joy, and they have all their needs provided because God's the one who provides those needs. We are not enough. There's a great sign that you see everywhere, and girls everywhere have it in their room. It says, "You are enough." And every time I see it, I want to go, "No, you're not." And everybody thinks, oh, that's so cruel. You would tell somebody there, you're not enough. That's why Christ came and sacrificed his life, because you're not enough. You will never measure up. You will never be good enough. Your very best is as filthy rags. But Christ came and laid down his life that the chasm that was between us and a holy, righteous God was bridged by his arms open wide and says, I love you as you are. If you think that you are enough and you have to be enough, it doesn't matter where you go and what you do, you will never feel that. Only in Christ will you have contentment, because with godliness, contentment is great gain. If this life is not all there is, then contented godliness is just waiting for more to happen. It doesn't matter if you are on the lowest rung of the ladder. But if there is nothing else under the sun, then we got to push, we got to shove, we got to gain all we can. And for the one who lives in or under the sun, there'll never be contentment. The one who lives in the light of the Son of God, there will be contentment, there will be joy, and there will be peace. Some will have much, some will have little. It doesn't matter because we have him. So if you work for your keep, it's going to bring value to you some, but don't make an idol of that work, because that's not what provides for you. God does. You know, it says here that the rich man keeps it to his hurt. You know what that's called? It's called hoarding. And we have a whole TV show about it. Have you ever watched it? It's a bit scary. Because when you've got all this junk and trash, and you're walking through the house like this, and you're saying we got to throw this away, and the person's like, we can't throw that away. No, and they start kind of going nutso because it's their success, even though to the rest of the world it looks like garbage, and it's scary, and it many times is unsafe. Ooh, you know, God doesn't let us just keep on in that way. He usually brings some sort of intervention. He does to the hoarders and he does to us. Verse 12, Solomon indulged in the envy of a man who labors, who has much less to worry about. Have you ever thought about that? Well, I've said many times, and my wife will laugh at this. She'll say, how was the day? I was like, oh. And I say, it's about time for me to go sell shoes at Sears. And she said one time, honey, I don't think you want to go to Sears. There's not much happening there anymore. I thought, well, I'm going to have to get a new store to go sell shoes at, because I just don't want to have to think about things all the time. You've felt that way before. You just think, oh, it's just one thing after another. And he kind of envies that a little bit here, that laboring man. The rich man has greater worries and less sleep. We may suppose that Solomon found little sympathy for the one who labors there. Verse 15, as he came from his mother's womb, naked shall he return, to go as he came, and he shall take exactly as he came, so shall he. No, did I miss a line? And he shall take nothing from his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this is in darkness, and he has much sorrow and sickness. Boy, those are the thing of our times, isn't it? Sorrow, sickness, and anger. Describe the modern American life right there. Verse 18, here's what I've seen. It is good and fitting for one to eat and drink and to enjoy the good of all his labor in which he toils the days of his life, which God gives him. For it is his settling the fence there under the sun in the world, but yet God has given it to us. He acknowledges it, but it doesn't really matter. Verse 19, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth and given him power to eat of it, to receive his heritage and rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of God, for he will not dwell unduly. Keeps him busy with the joy of his heart. So Solomon's not the, but he does know that God can do things. So it comes down to this with what Solomon says and what we could say today. The hearse does not have a U-Haul behind it. Have you ever seen a hearse going down the road with a U-Haul? I'd like to do that just one time so that somebody could take a picture of it and show it to a preacher who says that very line right there. Wouldn't that be really cool? So maybe if I die, would someone be in charge of making sure that there is a U-Haul behind the hearse when we go to the cemetery, just for kicks and giggles, I guess. I think that would be fun. But the truth is, you can't take it with you. You go out as you come in with nothing. So what's the use if you're not working for eternal things? My folks used to tell me, well, in 10 years, it's not going to matter to you. Well, it might, but for the most part, it's not. I forget what happened 10 years ago. I forget what happened 10 days ago. It's hard to keep up. We save all of our stuff so that our kids can throw it out, right? I told my mom and dad one time, I was like, Dad, why don't you throw all this away before I have to? I don't want to do all that. I don't want to have to do it. We save things and we think, oh, I could use this. No, we're just collecting stuff. We're just bringing it in. What's eternal in your life? What's going to go on and on long after the stuff rots or burns or goes away? What is it? Who we are and what we pour into our people is what's going to go on to us. Last night we talked about influential people in our life and our salvation testimony. Many of those people are already gone, but guess what? It still lives in us. It's eternal. It's eternal in the scope of everything that's valuable. So since our lives are in God's hand, we have very limited human wisdom. We should be satisfied with God's provision, whether that's good or whether that's bad, because this ain't all there is. Guzik says, though the preacher knew that riches did not bring true meaning to life, he was no fool. He understood that it's better to have wealth than to not have it. And under the sun, one should enjoy both wealth and the capacity to enjoy it as the gift of God. So that was Solomon's counsel to the wealthy man, the man who finds no meaning under the sun. He says, try not to think about it and keep yourself busy enjoying what God's given you. Is that good advice? No, it's incomplete advice. Solomon didn't have what we have, and that's the perspective of life in Christ, a walk in him. So I ask you today, are you tired of emptiness, of pursuing after things that don't fulfill? The contented person enjoys his life without being preoccupied with accumulating wealth and possession, but strives for the glory of a greater kingdom that will last for all eternity. We chase after the very same things that Solomon did to give us purpose, meaning, and fulfillment in life. And I would say this, we are better off dead, but dead to the kingdom of the world and alive in Christ for his glory. Are you dead to the world, but alive in Christ? Father, thank you for this morning. I thank you that we've been able to take your word several times and just open it up and merely look at it and see what you are speaking to us and how you're challenging us in our contemporary culture. Lord, I know of nothing that is greater significance than your word today. Help us to be people who not only hold the book high, but we hide it in our hearts and we take to heart those things that you're giving to us. Right now, if there's someone under the sound of my voice, whether in this room or even watching us online, that does not have a relationship with you and their whole world is under the sun, S-U-N, and they're striving and they're trying and they feel empty, Lord, I pray that today would be the day that they would look to the sacrifice of your son Jesus and they would simply claim that as their ticket, not just a ticket to heaven, but a ticket to living life as you have called us to live. Lord, I pray that today would be that day of salvation. Or for someone who knows you and walks in you, but yet the world is so aggressive in pointing us to do more and have more and to look at things as that provision. Lord, I pray that we would take to heed Solomon's words here and we would simply pursue you and we would be like Paul told Timothy, to be contented with the godliness that would be great gain in our life for peace and joy. Lord, help us right now to make that choice and to say yes to what your Spirit is calling for each and every one of us. And as a congregation, Lord, we pray that in the name of Jesus. Amen. Would you stand?